Welcome to 60 Skills, and today is our weekly wrap-up. So first question, is it necessary to reach step 8 or 10 in IH before you attempt the work of the third book? What are the essential skills you need for the Kabbalah? Okay, no it is not. As I have 60 Skills organized, the letters as Kabbalah are pretty much introduced on day one, the second you begin to work with the elements. And to do this, you need really to be able to do three things. You need to be able to hold single point concentration for 5 minutes. You need to be able to generate the electric and magnetic lines of force. And you need to be able to build the ball. If you can do those three things, it gives you the ability to focus your mind, to manipulate the lines of force in the body as you need to in order to split energy into fire, air, water, and earth. And it allows you to touch the energy via the sense of clairsentience or subtle sense of touch. Those three things are the three things you need in order to work Kabbalah. So again, 60 Skills has this built out as the elements as Kabbalah, and my course on Udemy teaches you everything you need to know there. Okay, it is said that some Qigong or Tai Chi masters can hit a person with Qi from several meters away, and then the person will have the feeling of being punched and cannot even continue to stand. Is it really possible to do this, and how? Are they sending out a lot of astral energy to affect the astral body of others? Okay, no touch movement is sometimes referred to as empty force. I do have a course on how to develop this. Let me be clear, this is martially useless. Primarily, this utilizes mental energy. With some very strong practitioners, it can involve astral energy. In order to move someone without touching them requires, one, a great deal of sensitivity upon the person on the receiving end. So yeah, there are some people that can be thrown across a room without touching them, but there aren't many of them. Most people that this happens to is the result of operant conditioning. They work with a teacher, they work with a teacher, they work with a teacher, and their body becomes subconsciously programmed to respond to certain kinds of energies. If you go online and look up empty force or no touch knockout, you can see all kinds of crazy stuff on YouTube of people just flailing around the room. This is almost always the result of conditioning from their teacher. This is also the reason why, on the rare occasion that one of these teachers decides to go out in public and challenge a mixed martial artist, they almost always get knocked out. Now, learning these skills is very important from the standpoint of mental transference and the ability to apply energy to other people at a distance. Super important skill, which is why the throwing techniques that I show in my Fa Zhen course are really crucial for power building and very important for your overall development. In fact, the strongest energetic practitioners I know all have one series of exercises in common, and that are the throwing exercises that I demonstrate in that course. For those of you who want to deep dive that kind of material, I strongly advise you check out the works of Mark Rasmus. He has comprehensive programming on this that, to be honest with you, is probably the best in the industry. All right, how important is morality in the IH system? I've heard of many IH practitioners warn that if a person practices for power or selfish desires, they will get nowhere. But I remember you said in your blog there's some very morally bad people who can be very good at yogic and meditative practice. So what is the difference between them and those who are morally good and also good at such things? Will the first group be punished by karma? Thank you. All right, here's the deal on that. Karma doesn't really act the way most people think it does. I believe I had a short clip on this a few weeks back, but the bottom line is the way karma primarily acts is like attracts like. So if you're going around doing a bunch of bad stuff all the time, you are going to attract that kind of activity towards you. Now, if you're very careful and you're very smart about it, chances are you can go a really long time without having something bad happen to you per se. The idea that you have to be a morally upright person to do meditative and yogic practice at all is, to be blunt, complete nonsense. I've known rapists, murderers, and killers and thieves alike, all of whom were highly skilled at this stuff. Now, what you will run into is a problem involving finesse. See, the thing is to apply the letters clearly or smoothly, you have to have a great deal of clairsentience. Clairsentience develops empathy. Let me be clear here. Empathy is not the garbage that most psychologists and pop culture writers write about. It is an energetic phenomenon that results in you feeling the intention and in some cases even thoughts of the other people around you. So if you're going around hurting people all the time or stealing or otherwise acting like a jerk, you're generally not going to have very good clairsentience because the irritation, that feedback loop between the clairsentience and your personal behavior will be such that doing these kinds of things is going to make you feel bad all the time. So for the most part, people who are good at this, who are very strong yogic and meditative practitioners who tend to engage in a lot of negative behavior, generally don't have much finesse. Because if they had enough clairsentience, clairvoyance, and clairaudience to have true finesse, they wouldn't be behaving the way they are because it would be extremely bothersome. So this is the problem that you run into, is that the jerks out there can have real power, but they're generally not very smooth in the way they deliver it, and their clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience are in general not very good. Again, karma being what it is, this kind of behavior tends to attract the attention of the authorities and tends to result in their being surrounded by a bunch of other jerks. And over time, this generally results in people having problems that they can't get away from. So that's the issue there. But the idea that you have to be a morally upstanding person to do any of this is, in fact, complete nonsense. All right. Why would you choose evocation over mental travel when it comes to communicating with the spirits? Okay. Basically, two reasons. One, you would choose evocation if you need the spirit to do something for you, either in the here and now or in the near physical. Additionally, invocation, where you bring the spirit into you, allows the spirit to flip switches on your behalf within your body to allow you to do things that your internal safeties would not normally allow you to do. Now, if you're just looking for information, mental wandering is generally the way to go, unless your clairvoyant and clairaudient skills at a mental level are extremely poor. In that case, evoking a spirit into a crystal ball is typically preferred because that crystalline medium makes it very easy to hear what the entity is saying. Now again, physical evocation has its dangers, and as such should only be conducted by somebody who has a lot of experience at it and has the proper facilities set up to do that. But hopefully that answers your question there. Sometimes I sweat a lot during meditation and regularly when exercising. Good. That's pretty common. Meditation in general tends to generate a lot of internal heat, the process of which can cause you to sweat. It's a pretty common phenomenon. It's nothing unusual. What most people found is simply if they stand very still for any length of time, the body will begin sweating as well. This is generally as a cooling mechanism. So completely natural and not a problem at all. Barton talks about using letters C and OE for Kabbalist alchemy, but most of his descriptions are about internal alchemy. Can this be used in laboratory alchemy as well? Absolutely. Letter C in particular is very powerful in that it is usually used in combination with other letters to generate specific energetic states that can then be applied to a physical medium. You apply this to the physical medium, and then you imbibe, drink, or eat it. The reason for doing this is very simple. It's hard to treat yourself with your own energy. And this is simply because your body's defensive mechanisms can recognize your own energy and will prevent that from coming in. So applying the letters to something that you're going to eat or drink is a very efficient way to do this. Additionally, you can charge sigils. The planetary sigils are most common for those familiar with planetary magic, and apply that to various alchemical processes as well. Keep in mind, for the most part, the liquids or solids you're dealing with have to be cool, as hot liquids and hot solids tend to shed energy projected into them. So you're going to need to wait until you're done with your primary alchemical processes in the lab and everything is cooled off before you apply the energy of the letters or the sigils of the planets. Okay, long distance healing, right. Regarding this, you have to make contact with an individual to engage in long distance healing. This generally requires them to know that you're doing this. However, over time, if you've worked with another person a lot, you can make contact with them mentally or astrally from a distance and apply the energy without their knowing. Keep in mind, you should only apply energy to people for healing purposes with their consent, because the simple fact of the matter is these activities will have effects upon both their mind and body, and it is not up to any of us to play God for somebody if that is not what they want. Hi, in terms of sooner training these skills, the better. I'm 19, but I'm still in the first steps of IH. Barton advised you to go step by step, so how can I attain these skills as soon as possible? And how favorable is my current age to develop them? Simply put, your current age is highly favorable. The sooner you begin training this stuff, the better, and the better practitioners have generally been training since their teens, so get started. As for going step by step, this is a trap built into the first book. You only need the ability to perform the basic techniques at a basic level before you move on to the next step, because all of the different steps reinforce one another. Now, that's not to say that you don't have to go back to get better at things, and you should repeat a lot of these skills over and over again. But the idea that you have to quote-unquote master something before you move on to the next step is much like the morality question, complete nonsense. All right, here we go. A discrepancy, control the electric inductive fluid via the inductive method. At this moment, you will experience a sensation of unusual fullness as if you are ready to burst. Go on breathing calmly or performing this exercise because this dynamic accumulation of light, you'll be tempted to hold your breath, which you must avoid doing. Okay. The issue with the electric and magnetic exercises as included in the book is they do not include the various joint locks which accentuate the movement of the energy and provide a protective mechanism. If you generate a lot of electric fluid in the body, but don't engage the electric lines of force, the head in particular tends to pressurize. This can greatly increase blood pressure and in extreme cases result in a stroke. This is the reason why the body locks from my electric and magnetic lines of force course are so important. This allows you to direct the energy outward, which is what you want with an electrical fluid. It's an expansive force. By doing this, it takes the pressure out of the head and makes it safe to work with this at a much higher level of performance. Without that, if you hold the breath, it's going to cause problems. So body training is one of the main weaknesses of initiation into hermetics, and my coursework and the work of Mark Erasmus were designed to help remedy this. So those are the main questions for this week. Keep them coming in, and I look forward to hearing from everybody in the future.